Yo, what's up, everybody? I apologize for yesterday. I don't know what happened. I guess Instagram was down, so I did not get a chance to really finish the rant on part two of the U.S. soccer culture. So I'm going to do the whole thing again and restart part two. So pay attention, watch this. I think you're really going to like it, and let's get going. So yesterday, before Instagram ran out, I started discussing how private training is a necessity in U.S. youth soccer. Now, it's funny because of somebody that I connected with on Instagram, he lives in England, and he reached out to me. He's like, wait a second, you need private training in U.S. soccer, in youth soccer? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, in England, it's not even allowed. So my point is, right, you go to Europe, in most countries, private training is not even allowed to come do private training. Like, and they can't pay for it. Not even a thing. So when he comes over here, he's like, wait, you guys can do private training? He's like, what? But it's so different because you need it in this country because to come do private training. Like, and they can't pay for it. Not even a thing. So when he comes over here, he's like, wait, you guys can do private training? He's like, what? But it's so different because you need it in this country because at your club training or really your team training, 90+% of players are not getting the development they need. So whether that basically means that private training is now a necessity versus a supplement to what you need, right? So maybe, supplement being, okay, you need to work on your first touch or improving a certain phase of your play, right? You could do that in a one-on-one session with somebody. But in the model that we have now, or not just into the model, the way it works here is it is a necessity. You need it to develop. It shouldn't be a necessity to develop. It should be a supplemental thing. But again, that's the structure, the model, so to speak, of what we have and how it is. And that is killing player development. Because let's say you spend $2,000 a year on your club, and then you got to do necessary private training on top of that. Right? I mean, so it's broken. Until private training becomes a supplemental benefit, we're going to be in trouble. So I'll give you some example conversations I've had with parents recently. And what I mean is, like, I've had a parent come to me and say, Coach Kyle, if it wasn't for you, in 5 sessions, my son has learned so much more than in 4 months. So 5 sessions versus 4 months of club training or team training. Another one I got was, I asked a parent, I was like, where would your son be without the private training? And they're like, to be honest, my son would have learned nothing this year in 8 months without you. And it's like, what is going on that players are not getting the necessary development? And so really this brings me back to the point is it's not about the kids, right? If your child is not getting better, or that at private training you're getting more benefit than, say, a club practice or a team practice, there's a problem here that needs to be addressed. And this is really the state of the U.S. soccer culture. Too much emphasis on winning versus the emphasis on development. Now, I have to point out that 90% of parents don't understand what's actually needed to reach a high level, right? They think that winning means development, and it doesn't. Winning does not mean development, because in youth soccer, you can use kickball and win. You can use kickball and win. So that means you can just boot clear. You just watch my kickball rant. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You're not actually getting better when you play kickball. In fact, you could argue you're getting worse by using kickball. So there's a fine line of the process to get better. Because remember, I'm telling you, soccer, to become a high-level player is a 10+ year commitment/journey. It's not quick. So the only way to get there is by taking the right steps, the necessary steps of, say, first technique, trying to play a possession style. Again, if you watch the Champions League, you will hardly ever see a team booting the ball or clearing the ball, right? If you go and watch the Champions League, right, and you watch, for example, the game yesterday, OL versus PSG, you'll see pretty much both teams trying to play soccer. Passing, moving, players rotating, non-stop combination play, for example, whatever, right? Hardly ever any passes in the air. So it's like 98% of passes are on the ground, and it's sharp, it's crisp. Now the question that I have for you is, how do you develop that? How do you develop a player to be able to play at that level? And the answer is, it's not kickball. It's not clearing the ball or booting the ball. It's about putting the ball down and learning how to pass, move, and keep possession to create overloads. That's how you get to a level to play with Messi. Now, again, I'm giving you a very simplified version of that, right? I mean, it's obviously way more complex, way more detailed, but like on a simple scale, that's how you get there. It's not by, okay, I boot the ball 99 times out of 100 out of bounds. You're not going to play for Barcelona that way. Obviously, you have to have the skill set, the ability, whatever. You have to also have the ideology to play a certain way. Kickball's not it. You will not develop as a top player, and this is what brings us down as a country, is too many teams are playing kickball versus developing players. I mean, I also spoke to a dad who told me that his son barely plays because his coach tells him he's not big enough, and he is a 2010. Excuse me? A 2010 player not big enough. 2010, which means he's 8 or 9 years old. Probably 8 at this point. But an 8-year-old kid is not big enough. What does that mean? He's a midget? I mean, like, what? I've told you before that you don't need to be big, fast, or strong to play soccer. It's here. Can you outthink the opponent? That's how you beat teams. And there's a phrase I'm going to give you. Speed of thought can compensate for lack of technique. And I'm using this phrase in the example of, if you can think faster than the opposition, than whoever you're playing against, you can beat that player. Now, you have to have a certain level of technique to be able to do it. But let's say you're playing against somebody very high technical skill, like through the roof. You're a little bit lower technically based, but you can think faster than the other player. You can beat that person. Right? And again, it could be the same thing. The person is very athletic, right here, very, very athletic, and you're not anywhere near athletic, but if you think faster and can play quicker, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So the fact that we're still hiding behind these excuses that, oh, not big enough. And you know what? Fine. Kid might not be big enough. We're talking about kids. We're not talking about adults. We're talking about kids. What? How could you say a kid is not big enough to play soccer? I'm waiting. The last thing I want to touch on is this, and this is a big problem in our culture, is too much over-coaching. Right? Telling players exactly what to do, whether that's from a coach or from somebody on the sideline like a parent. Now, parents, for you, I'll give you this to think about. The last thing I want to touch on is this, and this is a big problem in our culture, is too much over-coaching. Right? Telling players exactly what to do, whether that's from a coach or from somebody on the sideline like a parent. Now, parents, for you, I'll give you this to think about. If you're always feeding your child information, especially when they play, they're going to continue to rely on you for the rest of their lives for information. So, like, for example, if you're telling Johnny, shoot the ball, right? He's always going to come to you, little Johnny's always going to come to you and say, Dad, you didn't tell me what to do in that scenario. I was coming to you, I didn't hear you say shoot, so I'm not shooting. And now that's a little bit extreme, but think about the process of that. If you keep telling Johnny to shoot, and he's your son, or again, whatever the example is, they're going to rely on you for that information before making that decision. So, be careful. Let your child go out and enjoy the game. Let them go play the game and learn to make decisions on their own. Because when they become a professional player or a collegiate player, you will not be there. You won't be able to say, Johnny, I need you to shoot. Or Johnny, I need you to pass. Or look for A, B, C, D. It doesn't work like that. Coaches at that level, 90% of them don't say a word during a game. There might be there might be minuscule stuff like, okay, I need Jack to move over here. We need to change the formation. Whatever, right? But it's not, okay, Johnny, go here, pass here, do this, shoot here. I need you to do this. No. You watch pro coaches, there's minimal instruction. They give the instruction before the game. And we need to do that for our kids if they're going to reach a high level. They need to be able to play the game on their own. But again, it's about winning in this country versus development. And that is, folks, our country in a nutshell. That is our soccer culture. No street soccer. Focus on winning. Kids don't have that internal drive to go train on their own. Team practices aren't enough. You need private training to improve your skill set. That's the reality of what we face right now in this country. And that is why I'm going to be delivering this project. That's why.